I think pretty much anybody can learn to fly with enough time, if I'm being honest. Not F-18s. I'm speaking strictly rotary wing here, folks.
But I mean, that's a whole different area of expertise too, though. I mean, that it seems even more so like if you look at it from an art versus science or a combination of the two, is that there's more of an art to flying a helicopter than there is. I mean, maybe the fighter pilot guy is a little more so artful in that there's a lot of acrobatics and what have you, but there's a lot of shit going on with a helicopter.
You know, actually, having interviewed some of these fast movers, like gun pilots, you seem to want to be a bit younger. The reflexes and your reaction time is so important in a fast mover. It's almost the opposite in Helos, where like when we were in Afghanistan, we had a National Guard unit tacked on to our task force, and there was a guy from the Maryland National Guard who had flown Chinooks in Vietnam. No kidding. And this is 2008. That guy's control touch was out of this world. Yeah. Like you don't need the reaction time there. It's the art side of it and manipulating the controls and understanding space. Yeah. That's really useful. So the older that the pilot is in a helicopter, the safer you probably are.
So it's almost more like a surgeon's touch of the finesse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. Did you find flight school challenging?
Yeah, I guess as you were asking that question initially, the thing that's it shouldn't be surprising, but just having never gone through something like that, you're just evaluated every day very directly. Like you take a test every week for 14 months, like a written exam on something like the aircraft parts, aerodynamics, meteorology, weapon systems. And then every single time you fly, you sit down with one person, your instructor pilot, and he just goes through a list of what you screwed up. And you never did anything exceptionally. Like you may have done something correctly, but it's usually like, this is bad, that's bad. And so it just really reinforces that learning mindset. Yeah. Very similar to the agency and how they go through training. So I think that was surprising, like the grind of having to perform each day, knowing you're getting rated.
What's the simplest, most Reader's Digest version of how to fly a helicopter that you can provide?
So again, like it would be so interesting to hear an F-18 pilot. Like, I don't know if they describe that. Like flying straight and level is one thing. Like you can hop on the controls and keep that thing flying and probably not kill anyone. But to understand the basics of flying, like you have to understand how to hover. And that takes 6 to 8 hours on the controls, no matter who you are as a human. So like the most skilled person is still going to take 6 to 8 hours. And then eventually you get it and it's like a bike. But I guess the way I would describe it is when you're hovering, you have to manipulate 3 controls simultaneously. And back when like my dad and the Huey pilots back in the day and Cobra pilots, there were 4 axes, but now there are 3. So you got a cyclic, the kind of joystick, a collective on your left side that's up and down, and then pedals for your feet. And every time you make an input with one of those controls, you have to immediately make a corresponding input on the other 2.
At the same time?
Every one of them, like slightly thereafter. And that's what takes the time to learn. So as like the cyclic, you make a slight input like to the left, that's going to tilt your rotor disc and move you left. But at the same time, it could drop you and tilt the nose. So you have to apply a little collective. As you do that, it increases the pitch of the blades in the rotor. So now you have to manipulate the pedals a little bit more to stay straight so you're not off axis. And then all of that repeats and compounds very quickly. So that's hard. That's the hard part about it.
So like to compare it to fixed wing, it's more, fixed wing seems more one-dimensional and rotary seems a little more three-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be afraid of somebody hearing that snippet and me sounding like,
being like, what the fuck?
You guys got it easy.
Yeah.
I would say like a fixed wing pilot trying to hover is going to go through that same problem. Yeah. If you take a pilot, like a rotary wing pilot, and drop them in a fixed wing aircraft and tell them to go land, you can land at speed. Could you land on an aircraft carrier? No. Yeah. Like you want to land a jet on an aircraft carrier? Yeah, my feeling is that is like 4-dimensional type environment at night. Like that is really, really hard. Yeah. That's like next level.
Yeah. Hearing you describe the inputs for a helicopter, though, makes me even further marvel at the TF-160 guys, that the shit that they do in some of those helicopters at night on night vision, getting shot at, and the precision with which they can direct those helicopters in the conditions they do is fucking mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I'd love to get one of those guys on.